Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very last of the Deckbox War of the Spark Top 10's. We've done all 5 colors, we've done colorless, we've done Planeswalkers, so the only thing that's missing is gold cards. So with me again, as always, are Daniel and Matt. We're going to be talking about gold cards. Mm-hmm. They slice, they dice, they cost 2 different kinds of mana.
Or more.
Matt,
Start it off.
Get us going.
Let's do the time wipe again.
Let's do the time wipe again. What's it do?
2 white, blue, sorcery. That's almost. Return return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures.
It's a 5-mana Wrath.
Teferi saves this thing and kills the rest.
I think that this is pretty sweet in a deck. It lets you play Wraths in a deck that would not be inclined to play them.
Yeah, it gives you a Wrath when you're saving your 1 creature, so you have the 1 creature in your deck that you need to keep alive because that's your only win condition. So finally, control decks have win conditions, and this helps you.
All right, so we have a Teferi on the board already. We've cast our Spark Double and copied Teferi. We plus. We cast this. We bounce our Spark Double. We untap 4 lands. And
Teferi,
and then the next turn we get to cast the
wait, back up. Again. We have a Kefnet in play.
Well, we don't need to save the Kefnet because that's going to come back anyway. So we have a Kefnet and a Spark Double in play. Actually, if you Spark Double, okay, never mind.
We just did the blue list.
I mean, it's a 5-mana Wrath that has a slight upside for you if you're so inclined to bounce a creature back to your hand. If you're playing creatures, which control decks recently have added creatures as finishers, and we've just gotten some new ones.
Well, and there's some new ones that I think make this more playable. I think that there's some support for blue-white, so you maybe don't necessarily have to play black, like you have had to be able to effectively kill things recently.
Sure.
But it is just a Wrath, and Kaya's Wrath's probably better. Probably still playing Esper. We'll see how much play it sees.
Yeah, it's hard to say if this is easier to cast. It's definitely fun if you can try and instant speed and hit it off Kefnet.
I do like that.
Number 9, Neoform. Green and a blue, sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, a very common theme. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrificed creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, then shuffle your library.
It is, so it's like Eldritch Evolution or one-off Birthing Pod. I think it's a big deal that it's a 2-mana version of the effect.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you can play a 1-drop, then you can untap, cast this spell, and go get out of your library, and then it's a 2/2, and you get to draw 2 cards.
That's pretty good. I do like that. I also like going and getting Growth Chamber Guardian, putting a +1/+1 counter on it, and getting your next Growth Chamber Guardian already.
That's pretty good too.
And then there's also like any card that is tutoring your library for something like this there's always combo potential.
Yeah.
So anytime you need to tutor up a particular.
Yeah, this card has a lot of upside. If you're playing it in your deck, you're probably willing to sacrifice your creatures, so I don't see a whole lot of downside to it. I mean, I guess it gets countered, and then you've sacrificed a creature for no reason.
Between
these effects in standard
between this and Vanifar, if there is a creature combo that can conceivably play green-blue colors, it will be found, and then it will be redundant as hell because you will be able to find it very easily. And you can play the green finale to tutor it up as well.
Right. And you have Neoform to scale you into Vanifar. And
this is prime positioning for a creature combo deck. I'm hoping one comes together. I love me some combo decks.
I just like that you can go get and draw 2 cards.
I just like saying.
I know you do.
So number 8, this is sort of like the opposite of the first 2 cards in many ways.
Other end of the spectrum.
Dreadhorde Butcher, black and a red for a 1/1 haste. He's a zombie warrior. Whenever Dreadhorde Butcher deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on Dreadhorde Butcher, and when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So it is a 2-mana 1/1, which, if you're on the back foot, can be a problem. But he can also just completely run away with the game. You're going to get him for 1, you're going to have a +1/+1 counter on it, you're going to then untap and bolt their thing, and you're going to get him for 2. And at that point, if your thing dies, he dies into a lightning bolt.
Yeah, and I like that it says whenever it dies, it deals damage equal to its power, not equal to the +1/+1 counters on it. So if you have static effects that are growing its power, then when it dies, it's doing that. So if you've got a Domri in play, it's a 2/1. When it dies, it deals 2 damage.
You can turn 3 with this and Collision Colossus and stuff.
There you go.
Because you deal the damage, you deal the combat damage.
So you attack with it, you cast Collision, or you cast Colossus, so it hits for 5, gets a +1 counter and goes to 6.
Yeah, well, so you hit with it the first turn, right? So it goes to 2. So you get in for damage. There's 1. So he's a 2/2. You Collision Colossus. So there's 6 more, and then you add another counter.
So it's 7.
And then you thud it. Okay, so I guess that's
you're a little bit short.
I guess that's short, but
still
it's close.
Probably pretty.
I'm missing a card because I know I saw that.
Yeah.
That
additionally,
sequence.
we have a Zombie Lord in
Yeah.
the format, so this is a great follow-up to your Zombie Lord.
Well, and the Zombie Lord gives it Death Touch, so the trigger at the end is going to kill anything. That's a big deal for this card, in my opinion, that his Death Trigger deals damage to any target.
Any target.
Yep.
Players, creatures, planeswalkers.
Actually, since you brought up Death Baron, I think Death Baron gained a ton from this set. There are all kinds of zombies all over the place.
You're amassing.
Yep, I think red black zombie aggro is totally a real thing, and I think this guy's a big part of the reason why.
Number 7 seems like a Matt card.
My master. Desert. Master of the Bridge. It is a me card. However, I'm probably not going to play this in anything because it's just too expensive on its own. Because 4 black, blue for Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. Static ability is creatures. Creature and planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. So if you're not familiar with what affinity does, basically for every artifact you have in the battlefield, it reduces the colorless cost of that spell by 1. So, as Aaron loves to point out, if you have 4 artifacts and you cast Tezzeret, your cards are officially 0, and then you get more artifacts, and then you can cast 0 mana Ugins, and 0 mana Oblivion Stones, and 0 mana whatever.
But you have to cast the 6 mana planeswalker first.
Exactly.
You do have to cast the 6 mana planeswalker first, but he does do things.
He does do things. His +2 is the Tezzeret of Agent of Bolas ultimate, effectively. It's cut in half because it's a plus ability, so they gotta make it a little weaker. It deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and you gain X life.
Seems pretty strong.
Yeah. It's a
finisher.
+2.
Yeah, it's a finisher on a plus ability, which is kind of cool.
And the life gain is very relevant.
It is very relevant, especially if you're waiting to turn 6 to cast it. Although, let's be fair, you're playing artifacts, you probably have some mana ramp, so Mox Opals and whatnot. -3, return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand, so great recursion. Tezzeret's always been able to go find an artifact from somewhere.
Yeah.
And then your -8, exile the top 10 cards of your library. Put all artifact cards from among them onto the battlefield. And he starts with 5.
I don't think that this is a planeswalker you're ultimating very much. I think most of the time when you have 8 counters on him, 1 more plus is gonna kill them.
I mean, if the game didn't end already, because it's each opponent, so if you're playing this in Commander, like, everybody's taking, let's just assume a minimum of 5 damage to be conservative about it.
Well, and so honestly, I'm really surprised they printed this card because it has the word affinity on it. It is on a 6 mana planeswalker, so there is some chance that is too much, like you were saying, that he won't see play places because of the converted mana cost. But affinity is a really, really powerful effect.
Yeah,
it gets really
I think it was a hedge. This is the buy box promo, so you're not going to open this in packs. It is the buy box promo, and since it is where it's at, it's questionable whether or not you're going to see it in Standard. So you're going to see this in older formats and in Commander, where generally the folks that are playing those formats, either someone knows what affinity does, or there's some benefactor and benevolent individual that's going to tell you what it does.
It's not so much for the confusion power factor, but the power level.
It was a broken ass mechanic.
It was, but it was broken because of the artifact lands and because you had things like Frogmite and Mirror Enforcer and all these small things that you chained into.
I mean,
that's
on turns
why 1, 2, and 4.
I mean, that's why
you don't get the ability until turn 6. We'll say 5 with Mana Rocks. Like, it's not going to come up as consistently.
Good.
And I didn't play competitively back when that was around, but I was definitely playing Magic, and that was back in the day where I was like, indestructible. This is a ridiculous ability.
I actually think that people who played with that version of Affinity are going to be a little blind to this, and I think you are a little bit, because that is a deck, and it is way out of hand when it is an entire deck built around the mechanic. But as sort of a combo piece, as sort of something you build around, like you would like an Aetherflux Reservoir or something like that, I think the power level exists in that form as well. And
you're saying in standard?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if it will see play in this standard because there are not that many artifacts. I think whether this card sees standard play at any point depends a lot.
Wherever
on
we're
what
going in September is another artifact set. Hold on
they've
to your
said
templates.
they've said it's a new plane. It could be Britain, right? Jace's home world, which would definitely have a bunch of artifacts. I think if there is a second 2-mana artifact that when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, this card will see play.
Okay. Number 6.
Man, we're changing notes all over the place. We have an Affinity Planeswalker versus a 3/4 flyer.
I mean, it's gold, so it's going to do that.
Feather the Redeemed. Red, white, legendary creature angel. 3/4. Flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcerer spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So
that's text box.
That's some text. Pump spells, return them to your hand. It doesn't say single target, it just says a creature that you control. Right. So if you have something that targets a creature you control and something your opponent controls, it still comes back to your hand.
It's interesting.
So
that's why Aurelius Fury spiked.
You'd think that people would have learned their lesson on this card. I think the rate is really good. 3 mana for a 3/4 flyer is pretty solid on itself.
Absolutely.
The only thing that this card makes me want to do is cast Defiant Strike and get it back over and over again.
Yeah, I mean,
you just draw a lot of cards.
Go for it.
Yeah, you want to target your own creatures with spells and keep those spells in your hand.
Mutagenic growth it.
You can mutagenic growth it.
That's a kill condition right there.
No, because it's at the end of your.
Is it the end?
Yeah, it's at the beginning of the next end step.
Words are hard.
Which is why I like Defiant Strike, right? Because then it sort of becomes a 1 mana.
You cycle them through.
Yeah. But you find your second one, and now you're drawing 3 cards a turn.
But I mean, it's a 3/4 for 3 with flying. It's a good card.
It's also an angel, which is relevant. Lyra Dawnbringer, real magic card.
Real magic card. Lots of angels in this set.
Yep.
Can't. I think we talked about this earlier. Can't crew Perihelion.
I figured this out. Feather's not the pilot. She's the captain. She gives the pilot orders.
That is no. That is you're bending over backwards to pick up their terrible flavor. Not moving on.
Skipping.
Take a minute. Look at those ridiculous shoulder pads. Captain shoulder. I personally call it Feather Captain shoulder pads because they are way bigger than the rest of the art.
Let's skip number 5 and just go to number 4.
Which Matt would be very unhappy if we didn't talk about Niv Mizzet.
I have words for this card.
Okay, all right. Read all of the.
So the caveat is I have the one commander deck that I will ever build is my 5-color commander deck, and it cycles and it's shenanigans and it never wins, but I win in my own way. Niv Mizzet Reborn is one of each color, so Woobird. For a flying 6/6 legendary dragon creature avatar, dragon avatar creature thing, mythic, whatever. When Niv Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each color pair, so basically for each guild, choose a card that is exactly those colors from among them. Put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This card is terrible to my commander. That's a 5-color commander because it draws me maybe 5 cards, if I'm lucky.
But that being said,
it does create a new commander deck that would play more guilds.
That I need to build, and that's going to be ridiculous. You're not going to draw 10 cards off this thing ever.
No, you're not going to draw 10 cards off of it.
So that is the negative side of my emotions behind this card. The positive side of my emotions around this card is that I'm going to build that commander deck. So I'll have 2 commander decks, and I will have my win condition be I may lose, but I drew 10 cards off Niv Mizzet.
All right.
I want to take a minute to shout out to the art. I think the art of Niv Mizzet getting reborn with Bolus in the background being all creepifying.
Do we know how Niv Mizzet died?
We gotta read the book, man.
All right. So I don't think this card sees a lot of standard play. I don't see a lot of 5-color decks.
No.
Possibly Gates.
Yeah. All
Gates
I want to do
play it, but
is
it doesn't
make it work in limited.
But it doesn't really get any benefit in Gates because they're not.
The Gates payoffs are 1 mana, or 1 color.
So I mean, you're playing a 4 blue.
So I agree. Let's move on.
There's plenty of Gates that can. Yeah.
Aaron, this is a you card.
My favorite card in the
I think
set.
we all love this card.
Dovin's Veto. White and a blue for an instant. This spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. It is a negate. You pay a white mana instead of a generic, and it can't be countered.
It's great.
It slices, it dices, it counters target
Flavor
spells.
fail that this is not called Dovin's Ban. Dovin's Ban.
Dovin's Ban.
I don't think that's a flavor fail. I think it's
I
a
like
pun
Dovin's
fail.
It's a pun fail. It is a pun fail. Fair.
It's a punt.
I like the flavor text on this card.
Oh, yeah.
I see you've learned nothing, Chandra. You'd still put a match to something rather than understand it. So we talked in a previous video about the Nahiri Soren feud that's been happening, and I think that we're creating a new feud.
Well,
Chandra and Dovin just kind of keep going at each other.
if you look at the art in Chandra's Triumph, I'm pretty sure that Dovin does not walk out of the other side of this set.
I mean,
I feel like there's been some Vorthos confirmation that Chandra is not crispifying him, but imprisoning him, and that he lives
Yes,
through the
because
struggle.
that's what giant torrents of fire do. They imprison people. If that's the case, Watsy, I'm disappointed in you.
but this is a good counterspell. It's a counterspell that can't be countered. It's interesting. In our blue video, we talked about Narset's Reversal. So Narset's Reversal can still counter this counterspell. But I mean, overall, it's a blue-white negate that's really good.
It is the negate and dispel are sort of the go-to cards for winning counter battles, and this is probably better than negate. It's probably not better than dispel. Being 2 mana is a big deal.
I think this card was printed for. I want to say it was printed as a response to Nexus of Fate. Oftentimes when Nexus of Fate players got to that critical mass of mana where they could cast Nexus and counter it, this stops.
I can see that.
The Nexus of Fate kind of chain.
Well, and having this good of a off ramp for non-creature combos lets you put some more powerful non-creature spells in the game. And with this many Planeswalkers coming in all at once, I think it makes a lot of sense here.
Indeed.
Number 3.
Yeah.
This one I like. This is one of my favorite cards in the set. Oath of Kaya, 1 white, black, legendary enchantment. When Oath of Kaya enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent attacks a planeswalker you control with 1 or more creatures, Oath of Kaya deals 2 damage to that player, and you gain 2 life. So, I like the fact that this comes in and it deals 3 damage to any target. So, kills a planeswalker, kills a creature.
There's an argument that a sorcery speed lightning helix in a non-red color is playable by itself.
Yeah, no, I think...
Orzhov Helix.
Orzhov Helix.
It's great.
So you're casting it, you're killing a creature, you're hitting your opponent for 3 if they don't have any creatures, you're hitting a planeswalker if they have planeswalkers that you need to deal with. It deals 3 damage to any target.
Well, and the life.
And
the life gain
is
a huge deal. So if you're playing in a control deck with Teferis and Kayas, and other Teferis,
Or even if you're in like the Black-White Aristocrats deck and you need some sort of removal to sideboard in, like this is just a great card to.
And then it just has additional text, right? So this is Orzhov Helix that stays on the board. Whenever an opponent attacks a planeswalker you control 1 or more creatures, this card continues to gain you life and deal damage.
I really like the kind of the squeeze that it puts on you if you do have a Teferi or something like that in play, where they have to pressure your Teferi, so then you start pressuring their life total with the minus.
And if
or
they're not
Kaya herself, like this is great.
If you're not killing that, so if you're attacking into a planeswalker and you're not killing it, not only are you then losing life and not killing the planeswalker.
But they're gaining even more life.
They're gaining even more life. So if you're playing, so basically it starts to say that your planeswalkers are a supplemental life total and are now gaining you life and dealing damage.
I think this card's pretty good. I think that pressure is definitely a really big deal. I think it's a flavor fail that the damage does not exile the target. I think Kaya would exile them, but whatever.
You can't exile opponents, so you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Number 2,
Teferi. Time Raveler. 1, a blue and a white for a 4 loyalty planeswalker Teferi. Each opponent can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery. So the original Teferi ability. He +1s. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card.
enters with 4 loyalty.
Yeah.
This card is interesting. So I think
like
that you're going to see this card with Big Teferi in decks.
Yeah.
I like that if you're in a control mirror and both players are playing this card, the plus basically negates the static effect for both players.
Yeah.
But if you land your Teferi and
Times
they don't,
times.
if you land your Teferi and they don't, then you kind of win, right? Because as long as you have a counter spell as backup, once you've landed this, your opponents can't cast counter spells.
Yeah. If you get to untap with your mana in a control mirror, you're going to bury them. I also think that this is why this exact interaction is why he does not bounce himself. Why his minus doesn't hit Planeswalker.
Right.
So you don't play a Teferi plus him, they play a Teferi minus him, and you
right. So, but it's interesting that like if you cast it and untap with it, you're winning the counter war now.
Yep.
Just based off of this card being on the board.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it gains it's a really big deal that it's a 3-mana card.
Yeah.
It is a really big deal that it's a 3-mana card. Being able to sneak in. I don't think it fully replaces Kaya in the control deck because Kaya's your win condition.
That and Kaya gives you a lot of interplay against the aggressive decks. This
yeah,
does not do that great in the aggressive matchups.
It does let you cast a lot of sorceries at instant speed, and there are a lot of new sorceries that are very interesting.
There are also a lot of these aggressive decks, though,
Yeah.
that turn 3 into turn 4 is kind of the critical turn. So this kind of puts you at a rough spot. Obviously, you're not going to be casting this necessarily on turn 3 against those decks, but it does have that, Kaya, you can do that and still gain some life and get some value. And
if you cast this on turn 3 and plus it, and untap with it the next turn, and plus it again, your Kaya's Wrath is now instant speed. You can now Kaya's Wrath during your opponent's turn.
Absolutely. I'm saying you probably just die on turn 4.
No, it's not modern. That's too fast.
There are decks out there that do it.
In standard right now.
They exist, and if the only thing you have done the entire game is play this Teferi, you've probably done something wrong.
Fair.
You need 2 mana removal to play this, and this is going to see play, and this is going to see play with that. You can definitely be punished for playing it, but I don't think the control deck's probably the best deck in standard. Right?
Yeah, the only thing I'm advocating for is that it doesn't straight replace Kaya. I think it's
probably like a 2-1 split or a 2-2.
This might just be a card that you bring in out of the board for control matchups, right? If you're on the play and you bring this in and you get to resolve this as on your turn 3, your opponent not being able to cast instant spells and not being able to have counter spells the rest of the game, as long as you're protecting this. Now, it has no ultimate, so it doesn't win the game. This Teferi, unlike other Teferis and unlike a lot of Planeswalkers, does nothing to win you the game. You can plus it for the rest of the game, and it's never going to win the game.
That is the thing about the rare Planeswalkers, right? That was part of the redesign, was that they didn't want which allows them to print more 3-mana Planeswalkers. If this had an ult that won the game, you could not print it.
No, absolutely. And so the uncommon and the rare Planeswalkers not having necessarily the win condition like the other Planeswalkers do.
Sort of thing.
But you know what Planeswalker is a win condition?
Not the way you want it to.
Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. Blue, black, red for a 4 loyalty Bolas Planeswalker. He has a static ability. When Nicol Bolas Dragon God has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield.
All of them.
Which, if you've seen our Planeswalker video, you know that I don't like. +1, draw a card. Each opponent exiles from their hand. Opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. So this is 2 for 1. -3, destroy target creature or Planeswalker. Hits anything. -8, each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or Planeswalker loses the game. So like I said, I'm low on the static ability because his 3 loyalty abilities are so good. When do you not want to draw a card and take a card out of their hand? Like, his +1 just says 2 for 1.
His +1 is great. And I think that the turn that you cast him, his +1 is awesome. But I think that there are some situations where if he's at 7 and your opponent has just played a Teferi, ultimating this guy and
if he's at 7 and your opponent's just played a Teferi, he's in the bottom of your library. Or he's 3 cards deep in your library.
Sure, but there's points when that is going to be effective. I know that we disagree on that. I think
the card's great.
I like the fact that you can cast him, plus him, and the following turn cast Jace Cunning Castaway, and then ultimate your Nicol Bolas and get 2 new Nicol Bolases. That's pretty cool.
You need to copy Murphin and do a Jace Cutting Castaway cosplay for as much as you talk about that terrible Magic card.
Nicol Bolas is powerful, and I think that while I agree that the static ability isn't necessarily going to come up a lot, I think that you will find that there are situations that it comes up. One thing that was pointed out to me earlier that I thought was really interesting, Nicol Bolas' casting cost, the blue and the red are bookending the black rather than being blue, red, black. He kills 3 Planeswalkers.
Oh, for the 3 souls that he eats?
He kills 3 Planeswalkers, and there are 3 skulls.
Who are the 3?
Ral,
Dak,
Domri,
and Domri.
And then of course Gideon dies, but I don't think that.
But that is in the end of the thing rather than
just something that I.
No, that's neat. I like that
because I don't think that you see. I don't think that casting cost is usually like that. Usually they put the 3 colors.
I can't actually. I don't.
So, anyways, not an important thing, just a visual thing that I liked. This is Nicol Bolas. This is everything that we want Nicol Bolas to be. Mm-hmm. This is Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. This is Nicol Bolas at the height of his power.
And I think the power level is really there. I think that
we've talked about in the black cards video, Elder Spell, with 2 other Planeswalkers on the board on either side and 7 mana. This is win the game. Right, kill your 2 opponent's Planeswalkers. They don't have a legendary creature. This becomes 8 minus boom, dead. Game's over.
I really want my opponent to ult their Nicol Bolas, taking it off the board and flashing a Wrath. It's funny.
You're a terrible human being. Get out of here.
See, and then I can flash in my own Nicol Bolas in my 4-color instant speed Planeswalker.
Yeah, absolutely, totally, 100% going to happen.
This
is our last video, right?
Yeah, we are done, guys.
This is it. I hope you enjoyed it.
We had a blast. It was really tiring, but we're getting out of here. We'll be back at you with non-War of the Spark Top 10s later this month. Thanks for watching.
Where are we?